Good afternoon. Thank you for staying on this third day of Smart City Expo World Congress. Now I'm very pleased to introduce this session of this afternoon. My name is Tomas Llorente. I'm an architect. I've been working for local administration for over 12 years, always related with small and medium cities. So I'm very involved in the item of this session. And I will start presenting, introducing all the speakers today. In the first place, we have Carrie McCarthy. He is the mayor of Schenectady. Is it right?
Yes, very good.
Thank you. It's a medium-sized population of 66,000 people, 150 miles from New York, and who will talk about tradition and innovation, how they have been managing to become the innovative city they are right now. The second speaker is Professor Trevor Budge. He comes from Bendigo, Australia. He's the manager of regional sustainable development. Bendigo is a city with 100,000 inhabitants, and they have reinvented themselves for several times. This is a very interesting story. He will just talk to us on the second place. And finally, Ms. Vicki-May Hamm. She's the mayor of Magog in Canada, a beautiful city of 27,000 inhabitants. He has been mayor of the city of Magog since 2009, so she can tell us many, many things about how they are dealing in Canada with this city. So let's start with Carrie McCarthy. Please, take the floor.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today and go over some of the things that we're doing in Schenectady. Schenectady, again, is an old industrial city. The term actually comes from Native American Indians, meaning beyond the pines. And there used to be people who traverse from Albany, New York, the state capital, heading west. They would go through a pine forest, and then Schenectady was the first clearing. 125 years ago, Thomas Edison came to Schenectady and incorporated General Electric, which has been a part of the community, again, for that period of time and still is a key corporate citizen. Under our Smart City initiative, we've taken and put together a broad coalition of partners. And I think that's key to any community or business that's looking to participate in the Smart City initiative, is to forge coalitions and relationships with other entities, because there's so many things that are happening now, and the applications of the technologies that are available today are changing, and people, the more you think about it, there are more things that you can do to apply those emerging wireless and sensor-based technologies. Schenectady, we've again have a group of, it's a regional strategy. We're working on blight. We have community engagement with Wise Labs. It's an organization about 3,000 people. They're primarily retired scientists and engineers from General Electric. They're available to be hired on an individual basis for companies that are tend to be startups and smaller organizations, but they may have unique problems. This allows the ability to hire individuals with world-class knowledge at a very low rate and facilitate the developments of products and services. We've done smart transportation, working with some of the analytics that are available off traffic cameras, cameras mounted on light poles, and again, it's a ongoing effort to make the community more livable and sustainable. Communities today have a lot of information that's out there. Some of it might be in file cabinets, some of it is being generated every day. The sensor-based technologies that are evolving, getting a lot of information coming in, and it's how do you manage that in a way that gives you practical applications and that you don't become overwhelmed with all the information that's available. We've worked with a number of companies, TransFinder, we've tracked our fleet of vehicles, monitoring where our garbage trucks are, our snow plows, municipal vehicles, not only for in terms of appropriate deployment and managing the schedules, but it's keeping ahead of maintenance issues so that the expensive heavy equipment has minimized downtime. The most valuable real estate in the community today are those light poles. And it's how do you use those to the best advantage of the community in deploying the smart technology that is out there. A lot of horsepower that you can put there, and when I talk to groups or other individuals, everybody wants to take and convert the lights to LED lights. Yes, that's a no-brainer and everybody should do that. But if that's the only thing that you're doing, you're missing the greatest opportunity that's available to a community. Schenectady, just doing the light conversion would save us about $370,000 a year. It's a significant amount of money in terms of our overall budget. Just in New York State, there are 1.4 million streetlights that are undergoing that conversion to LED. And it has the ability to really be a game changer in terms of the quality of life in communities. How do you foster an environment that promotes economic development and again utilizes the smart technology that's emerging? We've formed a partnership with our local utility, National Grid. Sometimes utilities are not the most progressive in terms of looking at new business models. National Grid is using the city of Schenectady to do what's called in New York State a REV demonstration project. It's reforming the energy vision. In New York State, every time a utility bill is paid, the utility is required to set aside a small amount of money that then is used for innovative projects to do things that are more efficient, improve services. And that process to allocate that money requires the approval of the Public Service Commission, which is the regulatory authority for utilities in New York. We've done the application where we will work with National Grid and do the replacement of all the streetlights, and at the same time put cameras there, put a cellular mesh and put a Wi-Fi mesh on the light poles that'll again give us a platform to enable the utilization of the smart technology that's available. Again, this lists some of our partners. We're working again with National Grid, GE, Cisco, AT&T. The Alliance for Public Health is a group that's studying delivery of health care within the region. I look at the municipal services as kind of the base for this technology deployment, but we're also working with our school district to improve the graduation rates within the high school and create opportunities within the concept of remote learning and distance learning. But the largest savings in the United States is probably for healthcare, where you have sensor-based technology, wearable devices that can track some of the basic heart rate, blood pressure, and help identify problems before they become major medical events. The hardware, again, that you can put on the light poles and the results that you can get out of there are quite extensive. And it's how do you do that in a cost-effective manner? And when you do some of the sensors on the light pole, how to use that information. How do you improve the delivery of services within the community? People look at the light pole, and one of the first things people talk about putting up are cameras. Great utilization. They give you documentation for police activity. They create a level of deterrence, allow you to monitor traffic. They also act as motion sensors so that with the street lights, if you have a lot of activity on the street, of course your lights are bright. If there's no activity on the street, you can dim the lights down and save more money. At the other end of the spectrum for that information coming off is if you take one picture a month of your street surface, that can become your pavement management plan so that you're looking at deterioration in the road surface, staying ahead of the formation of potholes or other problems that you can better manage solely in an automated fashion, where today you have to send an individual out to look at the street surface, they put a numeric value on it, that has to be coded in and then run in a software program that analyzes the street surface. This can all be automated using the cameras that are deployed on the light pole. This was a study done by Cisco for the city of Schenectady, looking at 14 use cases for smart technology. In a full deployment, we anticipate the ability to save about $3.5 million a year over the long term. Our lighting component is actually saving us more than what the original projection assumed. And so again, it's how do you manage that? How do you do the deployment in the most cost-effective manner? And with that, after my colleagues do their presentation, we look forward to any of your questions and a continued dialogue. Thank you.
Is that supposed to come up with my presentation?
Yeah, they will come up.
It'll come up? Cool. Hello, it's great to be here. I've obviously travelled a long way to get here, so I want to tackle the issue of how do smart cities work for small cities. I think anyone who's here from a small city will realise that they've been overwhelmed by two things. One, that all the large cities seem to have grabbed all the attention, and all the large companies only really want to work with the large cities. And so I'm going to address the issue of how we might be able to redress that situation. And my three themes are that this overlooks the importance of small cities in the world. Secondly, small cities actually have some distinct advantages in becoming a smart city. And lastly, how can a small city outsmart a big city? So in terms of where I come from, this is a map of Australia. Bendigo is in the southern part of Australia. This map shows the 30-odd cities in Australia that are a population between about 80,000 and 300,000. Those cities tend to not be on the radar. Many of you have probably heard of Melbourne and Sydney, but you would have heard of very few of the other smaller cities. And this is one of the problems, is that we don't have a sort of a global or national profile. So what I want to talk about is the fact that at the moment, you know, much of the agenda around digital and smart cities is around the agenda is focused on the world's large cities, but I want to explore some of the facts behind that. One of the interesting things is that most of the world's population do not live in the large cities. We tend to be dominated in the media by cities like, say, New York or London or Paris, Tokyo, whatever. But in actual fact, the vast majority of the world's population do not live in these large cities and will not live in these large cities. So how can our smart technology reach actually the majority of people in the world, not just those who live in large cities? And ironically, even though our large cities tend to dominate everything, our large metropolitan areas, most of the growth is actually happening in small cities. So when you analyse the figures, the growth rates are much higher in many of our small cities across the world, and particularly, of course, in developing countries. So let's have a look at some of the facts about small cities. So if you take the world's 100 largest cities that are, metropolitan areas with 4 million or more people, there's about 15% of the human race is living in those cities. And yet, if you're an observer of media, you're an observer of information flows, you'd think that most of the world's population is living in those large cities. So there are about 1,000 metropolitan areas across the world with more than 500,000 people. So again, they account for about 1 in 4 of the world's population. But more than half the world's urban population actually live in cities with less than 500,000 people. Let's have a look at Europe itself. So in Europe, there are 350 cities with between 100 and 300,000 people. Collectively, they have 70 million people. So one of my themes is how can those smaller cities work together to show the momentum and critical mass that they have by being grouped together. In North America, there are about 250 cities with a population between 100,000 and 300,000. And in Australia and New Zealand, and we often work with New Zealand, there are about 20 cities between 100 and 300,000 people. And there's about 4 million people live in those cities in Australia and New Zealand. Interestingly, with the exception of 2 or 3 of them, they're all growing at a faster rate than the major cities in percentage terms. So, if you're from a small city, I pose a question to you. Where is your small city in the globalisation of the world? We tend to use size as being the key determinant, but many of these small cities have a tourism profile which is way above that of the size of the city for the competition it's facing. Many of them have a financial role which is far more important than their physical size in terms of population. Many of them project a cultural image, and some of the world's smaller cities are well known simply for one thing, their culture, or what I call their quirkiness. They're unusual, some attributes that are unusual. So even so, when you talk about smart cities, the competition seems to be overwhelming for small cities. They appear to be on the margin, they're on the fringes, they appear to often be insignificant in a globalising world, many of them are largely unknown, and their identity is overwhelmed by other places. So does all this matter? My contention is no, build on your own advantages, and I'll look at our city and how we've tried to do that in terms of being a smart city. So size is misleading. Size assists in bestowing the title of great on a city. We think of all those large cities as being great cities, but what are the real qualities of a great city? The qualities of a city that make it great extend way beyond the number of people. If you do have a look at some of the research that's been done around cities that have achieved some sort of greatness, but despite being very small, people talk about their culture, their vibrancy, the architecture, the inventiveness of the city, its fairness, how it deals with people who are down on their luck, what's the livability of the place, what sort of urbanity have they got. Many of the world's largest cities don't compete as well as some of our small cities. So what is my city's proposition in terms of being a smart city? I look at 4 things. Our size I see as an advantage, and I'll talk about what that means. I see that we are self-contained. So we have a critical mass, and so we actually have a degree of self-containment. So for instance, the city I live in is located about 150 kilometres north of Melbourne, but 93% of our workforce live and work in the city. So in actual fact, we've got a degree of self-containment. We have networks with other cities, and we are in the process of forming a network with 10 other cities around the world which are of similar size. We already have networks with cities like Dunedin in New Zealand, Dundee in Scotland, Galway in Ireland. We're working with a number of cities in the Nordic regions, trying to build up that network. And we also have a common agenda, and I'll talk about what a common agenda means. So our value proposition is that when you work with a city like ours, like Bendigo, what we can do in terms of smarts, and I think it came out of the Schenectady example as well, we can actually bring together a group of people around a single table to talk about an agenda. So I can sit here and I can stand here and say, if you came to my city tomorrow, I could put together 20 of the most influential people and put them around the table within 24 hours notice and actually had them concentrated on the agenda that you wanted to talk about. You cannot do that in large metropolitan areas, so use your size to advantage. We've been working with Nokia, Ericsson and Huawei. They are all attracted to the idea that the city of this size of 100,000 people is like a living laboratory. And what it allows you to do is actually take the entire network of the city and work with it as a single entity, not as you would do in a large metropolitan area where trying to coordinate between people is extremely difficult. So what I suggest to you is that small cities provide a really interesting entry point. So if you have a particular product, you have working for a particular company which is trying to demonstrate a particular form of software, a new way of tackling a problem using smart technology, then a small city is a really good way to start, is to pilot in that project. So I've met many people in the conference so far who want to have an entry into Australia. How do they get an entry into a city like Sydney or Melbourne? Almost impossible. But a small city would welcome them because in fact it would be a significant change for that city to be able to partner with someone from an overseas country. It's just the same as if I was to say I want to have a partnership with New York. It's not going to happen. But if I said well, I have a partnership with Schenectady, I'm sure I can get an introduction straight away. So, what have small cities got loads of? They've got loads of distinctiveness based on a range of human qualities, and those are around creativity, inventiveness. They have to be creative and inventive to survive as small cities. Their sense of community and participation, the active networks that exist. So Gary showed you a network of organisations in Schenectady that have formed together in terms of smart city. We have 14 of those organisations. 2 of them are multinational companies that have deliberately targeted Bendigo. Some of them are things like the local utility installations, local hospital, 2 universities and so on. That group has met many times, and the comment from people from Nokia and Ericsson has been they've never seen a group of people in any city that they've worked in who are all on the same page, all on the same agenda, because they're used to working with very large cities where they can't meet and reach all the key people. So our capacity to bring the key people around a single table and talk to a common agenda and commit to the greater cause is, I see, as our great advantage in terms of being a smart city. So the theme of my presentation has been to tell you that smart cities can be small cities, and small cities can be very smart cities in a world which is increasingly competitive, in which it's dominated by very large companies, dominated by very large cities. Small cities have got a very distinct role, but have got distinct advantages that can capitalise on their size, but also the qualities that their size gives them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for staying with us, even if it's the end of the day, and I know it's been probably a long day. That was a really good introduction. I'm really happy that we're finally talking about smaller cities. Unfortunately, I won't have the pleasure to talk to you much about my city, Magog, which is only 27,000. I'm here more to talk to you about our network. We have a network in Quebec called our Union Municipalities. We work together. And I brought to this network, I said, I think smart cities is not just an issue for big cities. I think we have to start, that was 4 years ago. I said to my group, I said, I think we have to start thinking on how we can help municipalities of all sizes start thinking smart. So we put together a work group to start thinking about smart cities, even for smaller cities, because what we were seeing for examples around the world were examples for traffic or parking, and a lot of cities in Quebec don't have those issues, but they have other issues though. So our union, our organization was founded, whoops, I think I skipped a page there, sorry about that. No? Okay. Well, our organization was founded in 1919, and we have over 300 members, municipalities that are members. So we represent 80% of the municipalities of the population of Quebec. So we think that if we decide that smart cities, for example, is a priority, and we work together to help each municipality, we can help a lot of citizens across Quebec. The mission of our organization is to promote the role of municipalities in social and economical development in Quebec and all size municipalities, and to support our members so that they become more dynamic, there's more innovation, and also we were talking about our capacity of attracting businesses, attracting new families, attracting tourism. So when we put this workforce together, what we decided to do, and that's the slide finally there was 2 slides missing, I'm sorry about that, was to start thinking on what would be our common vision for municipality of all sizes, what is it a smart city, and what would be our common vision. Like I said, because we believe it's not only for big cities. And how can we help each city start thinking and working with their city councils and their managers and start thinking smarter? So we decided to develop a tool. It's a platform. It's very easy. It's very basic platform to help every city council start this reflection. The first thing that the platform does is help you evaluate your digital maturity. Okay, there's a questionnaire. I'll show you what it looks like later. And then start to target what kind of opportunities are out there for you, considering the size of your municipality and your digital maturity. Also, how can we be inspired by similar municipalities? So we did a benchmark, worldwide benchmark with different sizes of municipalities, so that a smaller municipality like mine, 27,000, there are examples out there worldwide that are very inspiring, and they're probably dealing with the same issues I am. So, and they're willing to share often, and not that, like we were saying before when we met, not maybe for being attractive, but we're willing to share tools and how we solve these different issues in our municipalities. And once that's done, you can then elaborate an action plan together with your city council and your your city managers. So what does this platform do? This platform first informs municipalities on what is a smart city, and I will dare give you a definition in a few minutes. I know not everybody wants to do that, but we agreed on a definition for us. And then it'll help you establish your profile and your action plan, and it will inspire you with examples that are worldwide. Like, we've had a lot of examples this week at this Congress. It's very interesting, but not everybody gets a chance to participate, so they'll find some examples on this platform. What the tool does not do, we did not want to try to start giving technological solutions to the municipalities. We believe that belongs to each municipality, on top of which sometimes there are nice opportunities to work with local businesses in developing the technology that you need, instead of buying, very expensive solutions. So, like I said, what this tool does, first of all, well, who is it for? It's for the city council and the city managers. The core of the platform is a self-assessment questionnaire that you fill out. We suggest that you do it, with your city council. And like I said, it gives examples and information. And once you're done, every municipality receives 2 reports. One, like I said, is to give you your digital maturity, and the other one will give you some advice for your action plan, orientations, inspirations, so that you can do your action plan. And at the end, we will also suggest different solutions to measure your results. I've heard a lot this week about KPI and all that. A lot of municipalities were not really into that yet, but we have to get into that, like businesses. So they'll give you a few tools on how can you measure the results of your actions. So let me show you what this platform looks like. This is the platform that we've made. It has just been translated in English. There are 4 different sections in this platform. One is how to become a smart city. The second is discover the 6 dimensions of a smart city. Then it's the platform, the self-assessment questionnaire, and how to measure is the last section. So I'll go through this very rapidly, but you'll see at the end of my presentation, you have a link, and we have opened it because actually right now it's only open for our members because the members paid for it. We've opened it for the Congress, so you can go and see it for yourself if you want to test it, okay? So become a smart city. This is where I dare say a definition we gave ourselves of what a smart city is. Described simply, a smart city seeks to increase its attractiveness by reducing its environment footprint and providing better quality of life through more flexible services and through a flow and a shared government. So you can look at that. We thought that pretty much says everything. The 6 dimensions are, first of all, your vision, your strategic vision. Then the data management and open data. We've heard a lot about that this week. The technology, the transformation, and then, of course, and not least, getting everyone engaged. So there are also 6 dimensions that you will see in the self-assessment. The 6 dimensions are the community, the economy, the environment, the governments, mobility, and lifestyle. Of course, I believe that in Magog it's a beautiful lifestyle, but I guess you believe in all your cities it's a beautiful lifestyle. So this is what the form looks like. It's very simple. You just fill it out and you go through the different dimensions, and there's questions, and then you'll have a report, and you'll be able to discuss that with your city council and your city managers. And these are the reports, what they look like. It's very easy to go through, very simple, because we wanted municipalities of all sizes to be able to understand it and get starting, get moving. So this is a bit of what the reports look like. And at the end, the orientation and recommendations, this would be what it would look like. I'm going fast here, but I can also make it available if you want. I can give you my business cards. And at the end, like I said, we'll give you a few examples on how you could measure if you've really achieved those goals you've given yourself in your municipality. So, to end, this is the link. I invite you all, if you want to try it. We've opened it for you, so be free to try it. And if you do, please send us your feedback, because like I said, it's just been translated. So, thank you very much, and I hope we'll have a nice discussion and we're open for questions. Thank you.
Hay 2 preguntas. Okay. Thank you, all of you, for those interesting presentations. Now we've got like 10 minutes of question and answers. You can still think about any more questions. I have already received a couple of them. First one is for Trevor. Does the network of sister cities include the commercial participants also to provide them with the opportunities? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's asking about the.
Yeah,
you get it?
yeah. We're not really focused on the commercial links. The commercial companies would make their own links. But clearly what we're trying to do is to, by forming a network of perhaps about 10 to 15 of these cities, and we're only really targeting one city per country, is to say that the critical mass of those cities might be in a total of about, say, 1 to 2 million people if you add them together. So if you find a commercial partner who is working with one of those cities, you effectively get an introduction to the other 10 or 15. So that's something for the individual commercial operator. But obviously, if a city finds that they are having a lot of success with a particular commercial operator, and that could be a very large commercial operator, could be a small startup. What it does is gives them an introduction to 10 or 15 other cities around the world which they would never have any chance of actually working with. So we're particularly focusing on local startups. So we have some local startups that we actually now can give an introduction to a city in another country.
Excellent. Okay, the next question is for Schenectady. How do Schenectady regard the risk of vendor lock-in when they use the big players such as Cisco for their platform?
Again, it's a consideration, but when you look at the larger vendors, they also have greater resources to build some flexibility, and also you look at what's the lifespan of the deployment. Sometimes it's 3 years, 5 years. With a lot of these technologies, it's short term, and so you have to take that into consideration. Will you stay with one vendor? Do you build flexibility into it? But you want as much of an open source platform in place as you can have.
Excellent. This opens the question uh, for you because the platform you have developed have been developed by yourself, or you have used a big vendor, or can you explain your
Well,
case?
actually, we worked with the university, our members, a private consultant, and we built it together. It was paid by and for our members, but like I said, we're hoping eventually to open it up. And I think the next step after that, because we did benchmark examples over the world, would be to keep that updated and put our Quebec examples on the site.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what could be the role of an architect inside the digital transformation inside the small cities? I know if this one is for me because I'm an architect. Do you have anything to answer? I will answer lately.
Well, can I just use an example from our city? We undertook a major project where we think we're the only city in the world to have done this. We've actually converted a jail, an old disused jail, into a 1,000-seat theatre. And what happened was we actually engaged an architect from Melbourne, a big architectural firm, but they were so impressed with what we were doing in the city, and they really had no previous exposure to the city. They were so impressed with what we were doing in the city, they've actually set up a branch office of their city, and a number of their architectural team have shifted to the city. And it's a lot of it's about the fact that we were so innovative in the way in which we developed this theatre, the smart technology that we put into the theatre. So in actual fact, we turned something that previously would have been a disadvantage because you would have paid for an architect from another city to come and do a job and then leave. They've now actually established their headquarters, and in fact they've actually taken floor space right next to our city council offices.
Very good example. What can I say? Of course, I'm an architect. I do think that architects have a very relevant role in transforming cities with the digital information and the digital technologies, because as far as I know, we're not living at the matrix yet. We're living at cities made of concrete, made of bricks, made of sidewalks, and that's our expertise. So I think we have to very closely communicate with of course, city rulers, decision makers, also with technology vendors, technology solutions, to merge that into the real space city where citizens do live, work, and have their spare time. So I think the main role of architects is to make this technology land into the real space. So I think this is the perfect event for mixing ideas, taking the good part of everyone to make smart cities become true, real, and livable.
Can I just add something to that? Something else we did where we used some smart technology. So in our city, most of the buildings were actually designed by a German architect who came during the gold rush period. 117 of our major buildings were designed by this one architect. So what we've done is we've created architectural tours of the city with these light poles you talked about. We've got sensors in the light poles, and as you move around the city with your iPad, it brings up the whole story of the architectural history of each of these buildings. So we have combined our history with some smart technology and of an architectural heritage.
Yeah, and that's a very good point you mark here, because in the 20th century, the city was designed by one office of architects from a very top-down solution. Now we have the technology to really know what people need. All this data we are talking about, how we take this data into useful information and not getting overwhelmed, as you said. And the thing we have to do is help cities identify which is the metric that matters, which links a lot with what you have been saying about we are more lively, we have an architecture distinction, we have economic distinction, whatever, and help cities their own strengths to make them smart, no matter how big or small they are. Thank you. So we have like 5 more minutes. Is there any other question there?
The question is to Gary. There was this slide in the very end where you showed the economic benefits to the city, about $3.5 million per year or something like that. First of all, did you do it yourselves or you paid to a consultant to do that?
That was done primarily by Cisco, and we did not pay for it. But they were looking to come in and do the analysis, so we worked with them to provide information on some of our costs and some of the potential opportunities, and they pulled that together, looking at comparisons from other communities and their analysis, if these things were deployed, what the potential savings or cost benefits would be.
Because probably it explains the perspective for the chart, because number one saving will be deploying Wi-Fi. And I'm just wondering, did you agree with those numbers? Because, yeah, Wi-Fi is a good thing. Normally, Cisco pays for it themselves. But then how would that really justify cost savings and other things like video cameras? I'm just curious, did you really buy into those numbers and did they prove right?
The one example that was highlighted there was the energy savings off the lights, and our savings are actually greater than what the prediction was given. I look at it, the city of Schenectady is roughly a $100 million budget. Actually, it's a little bit over that. Our general fund, our water fund, sewer fund, and other capital expenditures. So $3.5 million would be an increase about 3.5% in terms of operational efficiencies or reduction in cost. And if you go out on the floor here today and over the last couple of days, you look at all the exciting things that are being developed, that are being deployed. If you cannot get a 3.5% increase in efficiency, none of us should be here. We shouldn't be out on that floor looking at those things. That there is real opportunity there, and it's that collective engagement of not just doing one thing, but doing the Wi-Fi, doing the analytics from the cameras, looking at other opportunities that, yes, you can come up with those level of savings.
But the last bit, but based on the chart, you showed that the real life data is over the estimate for the lightings, which is understood. That's the no-brainer part. But the other bits and pieces, either you haven't tested them or they're still in progress.
No, we have done limited deployments of those within the city, and we're now, and I went through that quick, working with National Grid, where we're going to do a full citywide deployment over what's roughly a 24-month period. We're looking at doing roughly a quarter of the city every 6 months, and we're hopefully going to start that really by the first of the year.
I'll just make one brief comment on that. One of the things that we've found, we manage about 800 buildings in our municipality, and we were paying about $1.5 million in insurance coverage on those buildings. By using some smart technology, what we've done is we've reduced considerably the risk of how we manage those businesses, to the point where the insurance company knocked about $700,000 off our premiums. And so there are other savings that accumulate that we often don't think about. And if you can't demonstrate that you've got risk management under control of your buildings, the insurance company is going to hit you with a higher premium because you're a higher risk. So using smart technology in terms of managing the security of the buildings, particularly when buildings are in, and this is common in smaller municipalities that have got large rural areas like we have lots of communities who manage their own facilities. So the insurers hate that because it's high risk. So you put some smart technology on, which is really around the security issues, around managing energy and so on, and you get savings. So $700,000 a year over 20 years, you've suddenly saved $1.5 million.
Excellent. So, just to conclude, do you have any other comments? Okay.
Thank everyone for being here and appreciate the opportunity to be part of this.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for assisting, for waiting till the one of the latest sessions of this third day. Thank you for Smart City Expo for giving us this opportunity to show how small and medium cities can become smart and becoming smarter, and hopefully see you next year. Thank you very much.